Okay, so let's move to web server. Let me first introduce you the concept of web server. So how the web pages are rendered. If you have this browser, you can type in this name on the browser address bar. The if you want to go to google.com, you type in www.google.com. This is the URL, right? I already mentioned what the URL is. Then what happened is the browser request web page by HTTP using this URL, right? That message flows through your browser, OS, local router, and internet provider. So basically, this is going through the cable or Wi-Fi connection you have, and then going to the server. So they have this addressing system that you can learn more in the computer network courses. And this address makes sure that the right request is going to the right server. Right? So one, it goes to the server. For example, in this case, to the Google server. They have cloud servers and all the cloud servers, they're actually stored in some physical server. So they have this large data center where all the web pages are stored. So once the server receives the request, it sends you back the Google's web page that has the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. So this is just replying to your request, the message. So we need this. We are saying that please give us www.google.com, and the server is sending us these contents. And then it renders the web browser is the software that translates all the code. So what we get is we get some HTML, some CSS, JavaScript, and some images or videos if you're playing YouTube or something, or animations. And then it's up to the web browser to translate all these things and then show you this page where you can do something interactive. Right? You can search for something new. You can play a video, or you can download the image, or whatever you want to do. You can submit information, fill in a form, log in using your username, password, security stuffs. And then this is how it works in the internet when your computer is connected to the internet. And this is also how it is going to work for your publicly hosted page, right? So when you have this page hosted in the timeshare, following the instructions given here, submission guide, or also here, then you should be able to access your page from uh, any computer that is connected to internet. But for testing, we're not uploading the web page to the server yet, right? So probably you're going to submit your work, the zip file on Canvas, and then you're going to upload your files to the server, not the zip file, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript files. And then we'll be able to access that. The graders will be able to access that and grade that. But when you're running it or when you're working on it, you're not going to repeatedly upload that to the server. That is not very productive because that will congest the internet, a lot of data transfer. So there is another way. You can run a local server and you can host your page on the local server, and you can see everything that how it work in the server from your local computer. I'll explain that shortly, but let me show you how it works. So when you have a local server, the local server has address. Typically, the address is localhost. You can use a name server and create a name, but that is not necessary at all. And then there is this port number, which is 8000 here. So localhost, using port number 8000, you are requesting localhost to give you a web page, and then the server will return the web page to the web browser. So if you request that, you get the server you get the web page from the local server. So both the server and the client is the web browser, they're running on the local machine, and then you can see this web page that you just created. So how it is different from what we are doing here? So we have this web page, right? If I click on this one, it shows me this web page, and you can see it is opened as a file, not a web page, right? So this is not how it works on the internet. For now, this is a simple web page, so it doesn't make any difference, but eventually you'll see there will be permission issues. For example, when you create 3D graphics, and if you want to add texture to your graphics, the web browser will complain that it is not safe. Why is that? Because the JavaScript, that is a client-side scripting language. So if I explain the details, so we have programming languages like C++, Java, then we have scripting languages like Python, right? There are differences. I don't want to get into the details unless you ask me a question. So the scripting languages, they run line by line. Now, scripting languages we use on the web, there are two different variations. One is the server-side languages like PHP or JSP, ASP.NET. Those are the server-side scripting languages that runs on the server. Every language-based instructions executes on the server CPU, then it only sends you the result. So you never see the code. Even if you like, there is a button called view page source. With a server-side code, if you want to view the page source, you'll only see the translated HTML output. So you'll only see the HTML version, but that is not true for JavaScript. So JavaScript, the script is actually always downloaded to the client, the web browser. It executes in your local machine using the local CPU. So there can be security issues. Someone can sneak in, malwares in the code or something like that. That's why the web browser, they block a lot of things if you try to run it as a file. But if you try to run it as a server, then it is different. So server has some network protocols in place that is safer than running it as a file. So if you run 3D graphics on your web browser and then try to load textures, it will not be loaded. It will throw some error saying that it is not safe, something like that. But if you place that to a server, which I am going to do now, then you can run the page same as it would work in the real web server or a timeshare server. So exactly the grader will, how the grader will see that if they run the page. So there are various ways of running server. You can install a server like Apache server. We don't want to do that. I assume most of us use Python at some point because we have CS background. Not even if CS background, a lot of people use Python. So assuming that you already have Python installed on your machine, Python actually has a server. So first thing, if you need to go to the console, for Windows, this is this command. For Mac, we have this terminal. So check if you have Python. For my case, I have Python 3.8 installed here. So I can run the Python server since Python is already there. So the command is Python, then M. So this is HTTP server. There are various other servers. So I run the HTTP server. This is the command, but I don't want to run the server here, right? So now I'm in C users Fahim. The location is not the location where I have my files. So I want to run the server here. So I'm copying the address. First, I'm moving to that address using this command. So cd is change directory. And then now I am in this quick one directory. I want to run my server here. So let me retype the command python in http. So this is running this server here. Okay. So if I copy this and use that on the web browser, I just need to replace it with the local host. You can see it shows me the directory listing for that page, which shouldn't happen, right? Usually when we type in www.google.com, it doesn't show me a bunch of CSS, HTML stuff. Later about that, but if I click on the example of HTML, now it shows me more like, you can see the web address instead of the file. So this was a file, this is a full web page. Okay, so what can I do so that every time I go to the server, I load this page by default? That I can do by changing the name to index.html, which is by standard always the landing page of the server. So if I do this, so now the name is changed. Let me do the local host and this port number. Now there is no directory listing, right? So it is directly taking me to the server, to the landing page, because I named this as index.html. So this is how the web server works. This is how it will work on the timeshare once you upload there. But before uploading, you can always use the Python web server to test your WebGL code. So this is how web pages work. So there are HTML, there are CSS. They are parsed using this HTML parser or CSS parser. Then you see the result, right? That is what is happening in our case. So we are running the code from the web browser, and it is doing the parsing. So we have this HTML and CSS page, also the image here. So any questions so far before I move to the JavaScript part?